Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Catherine, and here with me is Jax and Katarina. We are design students from University of Washington, and here we're presenting how we used universal design to reshape our perception of nature. It's all about birds, and I hope it'll be fun for you. Before we get started, I want to ask you guys a question. We know birds are everywhere, from pigeons, crows, and seagulls in the city, or when you take a walk by the water, you may see great blue herons, um, mallet ducks, and Canada geese. But you notice that you probably have seen all those birds, but have you taken the time to listen to them closely? For most of us, birding is a visual habit, but there is a whole layer of the world that we tune out. So right now, I want to invite you guys to tune into that layer with me. Please close your eyes if you're comfortable, and let's tune into the sound around us. Listen to the birds around this South Lake Union, and let's take 3 deep breaths. Let's breathe in deeply and breathe out. Let's breathe in again and slowly breathe out. And now let's do it one more time. Breathe in and breathe out. And now we're going to do a listening exercise. What are you hearing around you? First, try to locate the furthest sound you can hear, all the way in the back. Maybe the boat rumbling in the distance, or the planes flying over, or maybe the traffic sound. And now let's try move it closer at a middle distance. Maybe you hear people talking at the Seattle Design Festival, the wind in the trees, and maybe the water fountain behind us. And now let's move it even closer. What's the closest sound to you? Maybe it's clothing rubbing against your skin, or paper or phone rustling. Try to listen to your own breath and your heartbeat if you're still enough to notice it. Thank you very much. You may open your eyes now. What we just engaged is a practice called mindful birding. It combines the practice of mindfulness with the art of birding, and it involves observing birds with full attention, appreciating their behaviors, sounds, and habitats, while encouraging a deep connection with birds and nature. This is where birding by ear really facilitates mindful birding. This is what blind and low vision birders tell us. For them, listening is not just a workaround for sight, it's the doorway into something deeper, a personal connection. One of the blind birders shared that they can hear the emotions of the birds, and birds are a feeling, a way of life for them. That's the power of this personal connection. As one birder put it, birds are my friends. But how birding has been traditionally defined is quite rigid. It focuses on identification, checking off the list, and keeping the record. It also requires a high level of expertise. However, this perspective doesn't always capture the way that people actually engage with birding. Everyone birds in their own way. You don't need a checklist. You don't need to identify birds by sight. You don't always have to go out for new birds either. All you need to do is to enjoy and observe the presence of birds. Mindful birding is one of the most accessible ways to engage with nature. And as we just did it, it benefits everybody. And research also found that listening to birds is more calming than a meditation app. And that's why we want to bring this perspective and this practice to more people. And here's how we did it.
And this leads us to universal design for birding. But first, what is universal design? Well, when we design something, we usually build it for most people first, and then we add fixes later. So this is called as designing for accommodations, but universal design does it the other way, starting by designing for the people that need it most. Here is a real-world example. So this is called a curb cut. It's those little ramps that where the sidewalk slopes down into the street. They're made for people in wheelchairs, but parents pushing strollers, scooters, bikes, and people with suitcases use them all the time as well. These ramps weren't built for strollers or scooters, but they still help the people. These weren't built for strollers and scooters, but because it was made for the people who needed it most, it ended up helping a lot of other people along the way. And that's what we did with birding. We asked, how could we design for blind birders and give this mindful birding mindset to everybody? We wanted to make sure the designs we made fit this perspective of blind birders, but we also wanted to make sure it worked for other birders as well. So we looked at who else uses auditory first birding. We realized that because often they haven't invested in binoculars yet, novice birders also share this auditory first way of birding. This made them an ideal group to test against. And thus started our mission to bring the joy of birding to everyone. And to accomplish this, we partnered with Cornell Labs of Ornithology's Merlin Bird ID. It's an auditory first birding app that can identify birds from sound. It's also the go-to app for most birders, so it was a perfect fit for us. But first, before we started making anything for anyone, we had to see what they wanted out of a mindful birding experience. We talked to 3 novice birders and 3 blind and low vision birders, asking them questions about how they birded. We also went out with them, birding with both groups, to see if there was anything we could observe in their habits. And although neither group had ever heard of the term mindful birding before, they all practiced it in some way, shape, or form. I would like to share with you a story from a college student and novice birder. We will call him Fred. It was the night before a big biology test, and Fred was stressed. His brain was full, and he needed a break before he could study more. So instead of staying inside with his notes, he stepped outside and just listened to whatever birds happened to be singing that night. By the time he came back inside to study more, his head felt clearer. He didn't call this practice mindful birding, but that's exactly what it was. A quiet moment of noticing birds just by listening, and they were able to sing when he needed them to the most. I'd also like to share another story with you, this time about a blind birder that we'll call Wanda. Every so often, Wanda has to wait a long time on the street for her bus to arrive. It's a loud and busy street, but instead of feeling stuck or anxious about when the bus will show up, she starts tuning in deeper to the sounds around her. The birds calling back and forth, the little rustles and chirps that most people just walk right past without noticing. The wait doesn't feel as long anymore. It became a moment just to be outside and listen and appreciate whatever sounds happen to reach her. She wasn't out there with a plan to go birding, and she had never heard of the term mindful birding before. She was just simply waiting for the bus.
We want more people to have experiences and stories like these, and we want people to remember those stories for a very long time. So in designing this, we thought about 4 main parts of universal design that really resonated with us. Firstly, universal design should be equitable in use, meaning that anyone, regardless of ability, should have access to experiences. Universal design should also really think about perceptible information. So regardless of your sensory interaction, whether it's sound or sight or something else, all information that you might need for an experience should be available to you. Universal design should also be flexible in use. The curb cut works for a wheelchair, but it also works for a skateboard. And universal design should also be easy and intuitive. It should be concepts that are easy to understand regardless of language, perspective, or life experience, so that everyone can enjoy them. And in thinking about how to design for mindfulness and for mindful birding by ear, we looked at the entire birding experience. And whereas before birding, you're really trying to get into nature, and during birding, you're really connecting with the nature itself. After birding, we found a bigger gap in the experience. And also after birding is when some of that reminiscence and some of that reflectiveness that we found in birding by ear came from. So we decided to focus on the experience after you go birding. And now you might be wondering, this entire time we've been talking about designing for everyone, regardless of visual ability. Then why are we showing a screen? I'd like to introduce you to the concept of screen readers in case you're not aware. They're a way for people that are blind to access technology and access websites or web apps by essentially having the website or app read out to them. But this means that they experience a design very much bit by bit, rather than, if you're sighted, you can glance along a lot more. So in our entire design, we designed it screen reader first to think about what information would be needed, giving overviews in the beginning to help orient people where they were in the page and where they were in the experience, and also make sure it's accessible for sighted participants, but really starting with the screen reader experience. And we don't just want to design for accommodation, we want to design for perspective. So we brought birding by ear, and we gave that more of a stage. We created this entire new experience and this entire new part of the app that focuses on solely birding by ear and on sounds, and specifically mentioning that it's my recordings and not just any recordings, to connect it more to the memories that you made while you're birding. While we're talking to blind and low vision participants and also sighted participants, we realized that they wanted a really low cognitive way of engaging with birding, that you might, want to go back and hear some birds and learn the sounds, but that we don't really have a lot of bandwidth in our busy lives. So what's really important is to think about bringing birding to people in a fun and engaging and low cognitive way. And the way we decided to do that is through bird mixes or bird playlists, which is essentially bringing little snippets together of the memories that you shared and the own recordings that you made and surfacing them in 30 seconds or less, and really going more through audio exposure over time. This is what a bird mix would look like. And in thinking about perceptible information, we want to have essentially the audio of the birds that you hear bit by bit, but birders also really want to have more information on the specific types of birds that are featured to help them learn and to help them remember more. And here we really decided to make sure that we're separating information instead of essentially creating a narrated audio where you have a voiceover that gives you all the information. We're separating the audio, the birds, from the more detailed information. In that way, when you're sighted, you can listen to the audio and you can glance at the information. When you use a screen reader, you can listen to the audio, be in that moment with the birds, and then navigate the page and get all the information you need at your own pace. And sighted people tend to experience sound in not just an auditory way, but an audiovisual way. And we really wanted to honor that, so we also created ways to visually express these bird mixes and these bird playlists in a way that if you share these little nuggets with your friends, that's also something that was engaging to people.
And I'm going to talk about how we got there. So we facilitated mixed visual ability co-design workshops, inviting both blind and low vision and novice birders together to join a roundtable discussion. By co-design, it means we design the experience with our participants, understanding what they want and need closely. Specifically, in our workshops, we walk them through 3 audio-first activities. Based on previous research, we wanted to learn what people want to log, revisit, and share from their birding encounters. And our workshop is basically a birding journey for the participants. We first primed them with birding audios and videos and asked them what they would document in 2 different situations with different time limits. And then fast forwarding to weekly recap, we used AI to code a digital soundboard, creating audio artifacts for the birders to review, which is also what we called internally as Bird DJ. And our Bird DJ board, you can add different bird sounds, choose what sound quality you like if you want clean recordings or field recordings. You can also add field notes, summaries for the bird composition or reflections for your future self. And one thing I wanted to note it here is when we facilitate the session, we read out loud all the information instead of having people to operate themselves so that everyone of different visual abilities have the same exposure to the information. And what we found is that there are two main reasons that people want to document for. And that decides what people want to jot down or remember. One part is people want to document field notes and to learn more about birding, familiarize themselves with birds. So they want to see more information about bird behaviors, bird habitats, or what the vocalization means. And for the other part, people wanted a holistic memory for reliving later. So in that case, it's more important for them to notice who were there, where they were, and what kind of state of mind they are at. And how it showed up in our design is when people log their birding experiences afterwards. We built in flexibility for people so that they can add field notes, reflections for future self, and photos if they want. And that's what lets people with diverse abilities engage in their own way. Through research, we also understood what information is needed and most interesting to our user, regardless of their experience and visual abilities. And this guided us in our design for Insights page, where people can visualize their birding progress as well as perceiving the world around them in a new perspective. And we acknowledge that birding is social. To make the holistic birding experience more fun, we also created visually accessible artifacts to make it easier to share and resurface the birding memories with your friends and family.
We went back to our 2 user groups to make sure what we designed actually worked for the people we designed it around. For our blind and low vision testers, we did remote testing, looking at how well our designs actually worked with a screen reader. And then for the novice birders, we took them out into the real world on a birding outing, and then we had them test our designs out in the wild to get as close as possible to how these features would be used in real life. We had them both log their birding outing, and then we had them find a recording on a certain day. We had them find a certain bird to find the recording of. And then lastly, we had them find their birding outing on a map. And here's how they did. And I've run a fair amount of usability studies in my life, and I have to say these scores are pretty bad. We had issues with screen readers not being able to find what they could click into. We had people unsure how they could navigate into certain places in the app. But despite all of this, people loved the designs we had made. They said they loved how we wove mindfulness into birding and that they felt like they were developing their own personal story. We had people say that our designs were going to blow the birding community away. And heartwarmingly enough, we even had someone say that this is going to strengthen the birding community.
And so with all of this research, all of this testing, all of this thinking, we now want to show you the experience that we envisioned.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Do you want to see?
Yeah, sure. What are you looking at?
It's the rare violet-back Google Warp.
It's on a tree, on a branch, a branching one, and it's about bird height. You know, now a little left. The bird's left, not yours.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I gotta go.
Your Discovery Park bird mix is here. What you heard at Discovery Park last month. You hear most birds before 8 a.m. You heard 10 new birds this spring. You heard 3 times more black-capped chickadees than last year. You heard the most birds this month.
My go-to playlist these days.
I love that. By the way, I heard this hermit thrush the other day. I think I'm naming him Curl. Are you getting on this bus or not?
We still hope you kind of got a sense for the experience we envisioned. And we also want to share with you what this project impacted. And it actually gave the three of us a whole new way of observing our environments. From our conversations with blind and low vision birders and the perspective they shared about birding by ear and mindful birding, we've now individually been able to go through life in a different way, much more aware of the surroundings and the audio that is around us every day. But besides seeing birding or perceiving birding in a new way, we also were able to create conversations between different types of birders. And in our mixed visual ability co-design sessions, we were able to have lovely interactions between sighted and blind birders, where the sighted birders after the session were enamored by the birding by ear abilities and sharing that they wanted to learn that more as well. Mindful birding is very, very personal. And throughout this experience, we've been able to understand and perceive how everyone finds their own meaning in it and how mindful birding is different for everyone. And lastly, in working with Merlin at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, we've actually been able to bring a new way of thinking about design and about research. And we were actually able to work with and to ask and have conversations with blind and low vision birders and sighted novice birders for the first time ever in the context of Merlin. And we've now been able to inspire also a different way of thinking and approaching any new projects going forward. What we want you to take away from this is that everyone birds in their own way, but also that every way is valid. When we talk to blind and low vision birders, we also ask them what they want the broader birding community to know. And one blind birder said this: "We are here and we love to bird." And we hope that you find your way to bird and you can find joy in how other people perceive the world around you. Thank you so much.